everyone's set up. Good morning.
Are we just not starting because of me?
There he is. OG, triple OG. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you on this side of the plaza.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the press for being here for this press conference on the youth agenda. Thank you to our members of Congress so much for supporting young people and being here for this rollout. And then thank you to all the members of the organizations that are here today. So many cool young people here to represent. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm Michelle. I'm the yeah, young people. Where's the energy? It's early for us. We're young, right? We sleep in. I'm Michelle. I'm the political director at Sunrise Movement, and we're here today because our movements feel a commitment and responsibility to set the terms of government in a way that truly prioritizes our generation and delivers solutions to the many crises we face every day. Almost a year ago, a group of us from 4 organizations came together to answer a question. What is needed to make this administration reckon with what will mobilize the youth vote? Last year, we could not have foreseen how dire this moment would be today, but we are determined that alongside our movements and organizing, we would create a suite of policies that resonate with young people that would be necessary for the administration to champion in order to build enough trust and commitment with our generation to make us feel prioritized this year. And so, the youth agenda was built. Today, we are also launching a living website where more youth groups across the country are adding to the agenda to cover every issue that our generation is facing, from the climate crisis to housing to gender inequality and more. We are calling it the Finish the Job Youth Agenda, to lay a roadmap in front of President Biden and show him what finishing the job truly looks like, because we are so far from done right now. This is an agenda that calls for investing in our communities and recommitting to the promises that this administration once made, rather than sending billions of dollars in weapons and bombs to far-right governments that are dropping them on children in Gaza. Our generation knows the importance and the stakes of this election, but being repeatedly told to simply vote for the lesser of two evils is causing young people to feel alienated and disillusioned. We want and deserve a leader who runs on more than just being better than the other guy. We want and deserve a leader who truly hears our cries for a better world and who will stand alongside us in our fight for that world. Right now, millions of people across the country are facing heat waves and flooding, a cost of living and housing crisis, gun violence at our schools and grocery stores, our reproductive safety and rights being legislated away, loved ones being ripped away from us at the hands of far-right immigration policy, and a democracy that prioritizes the upper class over everyone else. For me, our path forward is clear. There's no waffling back and forth between who to appeal to and when. My home, Colorado, is on fire so much of the time. It's not a question of if the air will be too dangerous to breathe, but when and which days. In the fight between life and death, we demand and we deserve a government that will do everything it can to fight for our lives. President Biden has the opportunity to build a legacy cemented in unapologetically fighting for the end to the climate crisis. Imagine if the day after the Maui fires, or even the Texas Smokehouse Creek fires just last week, Biden heard the cries of millions and formally declared a climate emergency to use his executive powers to create a roadmap to phase out all oil, gas, and coal production and reallocate funds towards larger renewable energy projects, to ensure that everyone in these fires that has been impacted has free healthcare and housing post-disaster. He has the power to do that today. This election is not going to be decided by whether or not young people choose between two non-resident politicians, but will be decided by whether or not the administration can reckon with the critical situation we are in. We need President Biden to see this suite of policies as an offering and as a word of warning that casting young people's priorities aside is a recipe for disaster in 2024. That if you have us, the largest voting bloc in the country, who has decided the election outcomes of the past 2 cycles, you will win. Invest in our generation, and we will invest in a second term partnered with the administration to make everyone's lives better. That is the legacy that President Biden can choose to make, and the youth agenda is a path for how to do that. I am so grateful to be up here with so many people that are dedicated to fighting for the working class and for Black and brown young people. Today may also be filled with urgency and a call to act, but it's also filled with hope and gratitude for all the people who are currently up here working tirelessly to build a society that works for all of us. And it is my pleasure to get to introduce one of those very leaders. He has stood up for the working class time and time again. He has unapologetically fought for social investments that provide solutions to the many crises we face. And he is recognizably one of the movement's besties, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Well, let me thank the Sunrise Movement for the years of advocacy. You have motivated millions and millions of young people to stand up for justice, got them involved in the political process, and we thank you very much for that. I think, as Michelle said, and I agree with virtually everything that she said, it is important for the president to go forward and talk about some of his important achievements. But even more important is to recognize that this country, working class people, face enormous crises that have got to be dealt with. When we talk about climate, we are talking about whether there will be a planet that is habitable for young people and their kids and their grandchildren. And if we do not act boldly, that may not be the case. We've got to bring the entire world together around a bold agenda that takes on the greed of the fossil fuel industry, creates millions of jobs in this country as we transform our energy system. And I want to thank the Sunrise Movement for being a leader in that. Furthermore, we need an economy that works for all. That's right. And everybody here has got to know that right now the economy is doing great for the billionaire class. They have never, ever had it so good. And yet 3 blocks from here, there are people sleeping out on the street. Part of 600,000 Americans are homeless. We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Our child care system is now collapsing. Women's rights to control their own bodies are under attack. So what we have got to do as a movement, all of us, have got to tell the ruling class of this country that their greed has got to end. We cannot tolerate their greed anymore. Major corporations making huge profits. You know how much they're paying in taxes? Less than you are. Billionaires putting huge amounts of money into super PACs to elect candidates who represent them. We need to change that system. So we got an enormous amount of work to do. But here is the good news. At the end of the day, the 1% is enormously powerful. I don't underestimate their power. They have unlimited amounts of money. But you know what we got? We got the people. All right? We are the 99%. They're the 1%. They win if we don't mobilize our people. We win if we do. Let's mobilize our people. Let's transform this country. Let's create a nation that works for all of us, for our kids, for our parents, for the environment. Let's go forward together. Thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you all so much. Now I would like to introduce Representative Summerlee.
Good morning, good morning. Let me tell you, it is good and it's an honor to be here with the heart, the soul, and the energy of our country, the energy and the soul and the heart of our party. I think that it's time that we have a reckoning. And it's going to be uncomfortable, because I think that as we're thinking about the future, we're thinking about how do we as a government, how do we as a party honor the scope and the scale of and the urgency of the moments, the crises that we're facing. It's going to take us to recognize the new coalition that we're going to need to address so many of the issues that we're here to address with these groups. That's why it's so good to be here today with March for Our Lives, with Sunrise, with Gen Z for Change, United We Dream Action, with youth and young people, and even millennials, as I believe the youngest black woman in Congress, youth adjacent, all of us coming together to build this multiracial, multi-generational movement, because we recognize what's at stake. It's a good thing that we have so many people who are fired up to not just honor the past, to not just acknowledge what we have done, and we do acknowledge the things that we have achieved, accomplished in the last Congress and then with our administrations, but we have to push. We have to continue to push to expand the realm of what's possible, so that we are actually cashing in on the promises of this generation that they have been. And we know that we are dealing with a generation that has had so many promises fail on them. When we think about what this generation, and not just Gen Z, from Gen X, I'm not going to shout out to Jamal. Bro, I don't assume to know what generation everybody's in. But so many of our generations have grown up with a false promise that has not been realized yet. When we think about the climate crisis, and we think about environmental racism in the black and the brown and the poor communities that have grown up in the shadows of industries that have extorted and exploited us and left our communities with poorer air quality or lead in our waters, we need a movement right now that is ready, that is urgent, that is capable to meet that moment. When we think about the gun violence crisis that our young people are living through right now, when we think about the drills, the fear, the apprehension, no other country on God's green earth do we have our young people growing up in this environment. We have to thank our March for Our Lives. People, kids, young people who have experienced the unimaginable, but instead of cowering, they've stood up and they've demanded change, immediate change, who fight even though they come to this place day in, week out, cycle in and out, and they've seen no change, and yet they continue to come. We have to honor the commitment, the action of young people who deserve better. When we think about the movement for Black lives, the unfulfilled promises of racial justice in this country, it's not enough to give lip service. We have to cash in, and we have to make sure that we are executing the plans and giving everybody and every person in this country what they need and they deserve. When we think about the fact that our country continues to come up with money for wars, that right now our bombs, our dollars are going to bomb and harm children in Gaza. It's time that we have a government that is responsive to the needs of our voters, not the money that comes in from lobbyists or super PACs. We have a charge and we have a mandate right now, and we're here to fulfill on that. And I think that right now we are the best pathway forward for this country. That's why I said, while we recognize all of the things that we need to yet accomplish, we should also recognize the opportunity that we have with us today, because the answer is here. The answer is with us. And right now, the best way forward is not to push aside this multiracial, multi-generational coalition. It's to lean into it. It's to embrace it. We won't win and save our democracy, which we all know. Everyone here knows that that is our charge right now. We all recognize the danger that a Trump presidency, that extremism and fascism poses to each of our communities. We know better than anyone. And that's why we're fighting harder than anyone. That's why we are building these coalitions, because we know that the past isn't just going to be the same old folks who drove the Democratic parties of the past, but we know that the future can only go through young people, through black and brown people, through our immigrants, through our working class and our poor, through our labor unions. And when we bring that coalition together, we are unstoppable. So we're here today to acknowledge what we've done, but to say that we have more to do, and we have the people who are ready to do it. We know exactly who to turn to. So let's finish the job. Let's lift up the people who are going to hold up our country. Let's lift up the people who are not saying that we want to build for the money, but instead for the many. And I'm proud to be here with you all today. So thank you for being here. And I think that I am handing it off to my good friend Elise, who is next.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone give another round of applause to Representative Summer Lee? That was amazing. Hi, everyone. I'm Elise. I'm a climate organizer, and I'm also executive director at Gen Z for Change. And today I'm here to dispel a myth that us youth are narrow-minded, short-sighted, and the most egregious claim of them all that we are jaded. You see, youth from Lake Charles, Louisiana to Atlanta, Georgia to Dearborn, Michigan are awake, and we have plans to actualize our dreams for a better future. These accusations of us youth are simply confessions. Our leaders are caught up on short-term profits and non-existent technological fixes, while we are focused on what science, Mother Earth, and communities are urgently telling us needs to be done. Our leaders are telling us their hands are tied to protect abortion and trans youth or combat the inaffordability of life, while we are unionizing and organizing as students, workers, voters, and tenants. We are not going to cross our fingers and pray that those in power have it handled, because we cannot afford to. We've hit 1.5 degrees of warming for 12 months in a row now. I am from the Bay Area, and since 1970, the American West has seen twice as much land burned by fire. And the trends for storms, hurricanes, floods, droughts, they all follow the same trajectories. The rent is too damn high.
That's right.
22.4 million of the 44 million total renting households are rent burdened. Roughly a third of Gen Z is living at home because they cannot afford rent. Attacks on vulnerable and marginalized youth are proliferating across the country. Bigoted laws are passing nationwide that ban trans youth from sports and from receiving gender-affirming care, downplaying slavery and systemic racism in our textbooks, and defunding public schools and libraries. And yet, from record-breaking oil and gas production on public lands to wavering environmental and indigenous sovereignty laws to build Trump's wall, our supposed saviors of democracy are not doing much saving. This moment requires us to act boldly across issues. We must condition the $150 billion a year our federal government subsidizes to landlords with eviction and tenant protections. We must rapidly phase out coal, oil, and gas extraction while protecting workers. We need an intentional, clean energy transition that centers good-paying, good-benefit union jobs, indigenous sovereignty, wildlife protection, ecosystem restoration, walkability, and public transit. We must expand DACA and end the collaboration between ICE and local police. Most urgently, though, we need to acknowledge that there is no justice on occupied land. Over 30,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, but we refuse to see Palestinians as mere numbers. I will never forget the voice of Little Hind pleading for rescue over the phone. Abdel Karim trying to console his mother as he mourns the loss of his brother Salam. Rifat Al-Harir's haunting poem urging, "If I die, let it bring hope." This indiscriminate slaughter, the destroyed homes, hospitals, churches, mosques, schools, and libraries, the border walls, the segregated road systems, the hundreds of checkpoints, they're all financed by us. And I refuse. We refuse to be complicit in this genocide. Gen Z for Change launched a tool last week that enabled people to send over 4 million emails to members of Congress urging for a ceasefire. On top of that, millions are marching, divesting, donating, learning, and amplifying. So to our supposed representatives, we are awake and unwavering. Us youth know the interconnectedness between the climate crisis, occupation, tenant protections, reproductive justice, housing, policing, militarism. And we reject that this is how it ought to be. We center love. We embrace community. We nurture the trees, soils, and animals that bring us life. We hope, knowing a world centered on these principles is possible. None of us are free until all of us are free. Leaders must embrace this to earn our trust. Phase out fossil fuels, stop Cop City, ceasefire now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here to introduce the wonderful Michelle from United We Dream.
Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Ming and I'm a proud Texan, daughter of immigrants and Gen Zer. I also have the honor of serving as the political director at United We Dream Action. the leading political home for immigrant young people in the country, young people of color, and our allies. I'm here today with our lovely United We Dream Action members, our progressive partners, as well as members of Congress, to demand that President Biden listen to the young people in this country who worked tirelessly to get him to where he is. Our Finish the Job Youth Agenda is a clear reiteration of the issues that matter most to young people and a roadmap for candidates to follow if they want to win. We've seen an influx of racist and xenophobic rhetoric dominate the national conversation and translate into anti-immigrant policies that have been passed in states ranging from my former home state of Texas to my current home state of New York. The far right is using hate and fear to police immigrants and bar many of us from accessing jobs, education, and healthcare, and they're recklessly promoting white supremacist ideologies that have incited violence in places like El Paso and Buffalo. While Republicans are leading the charge, though, far too many Democrats are either staying silent and letting Republicans run wild or trying to beat Republicans at their own racist game. But the stakes are way too high to be playing these games. The Biden administration cannot let immigrants continue to be used as political scapegoats or pawns. Recently, one of our United We Dream Action members said something that really stuck with me. When push comes to shove, we shove back. When we face devastating shootings of Black, brown, and Asian people, we shove back. When law enforcement agencies deport and murder our communities, we shove back. When the highest court of law in the land denies us our basic right to bodily autonomy, we shove back. When we see our government funding a genocide abroad and turning our borders into a literal war zone, we shove back. Our generation is energized, just as we've always been. We just need the Biden administration to give us something to direct our energy towards. And with the youth agenda, we're literally giving him the playbook. So the ball's in his court. Thank you. And actually, now I get the honor of introducing a champion for immigrants across the country and also a fellow Texan, Congressman Greg Casar.
I'm Greg Casar. I'm proud to represent the heart of Texas. And I just got back from my home state after visiting campus after campus, from San Antonio, Texas to San Marcos, Texas to Austin, Texas, talking to young people. And young people didn't ask me about the president's age. They didn't ask me about the president's son. They asked me about policies that determine life and death for everyday Americans. That's what young people are asking about. They are demanding that their families stop being separated by ICE. They're demanding that we protect our planet and have a livable future for generations to come. They are demanding that we put in place sensible gun policies so that their kids won't have to run through the gun safety drills that they had to go through. It's not too much to ask. And they are going to continue to lead the way as they always have. Because if you look at our history, if you look at the lunch counters sit-ins against segregation, and you look at those pictures, it was college students and teenagers and community college students from Atlanta to Nashville to Birmingham to Austin that were filling up the local jails. If you checked who it is that argued Roe v. Wade at the Supreme Court here up the street, it was a 20-something-year-old Texas lawyer, Sarah Weddington, who had never taken a case to trial before, that brought abortion rights to this country, and it's going to be young people from the South that bring abortion rights back. It's not going to be politicians in this building. It's going to be young folks organizing. If you look at who built the Chicano movement and the labor movement in Texas, it was 20-something-year-old immigrant women. And that is the moment that we're in. We're called to that kind of moment again, to listen to young people who are demanding change, who are demanding an end to politics as usual, who are demanding an end to bombing of innocent young people all over the world, and who are calling on our president and our Congress to make a change, to do what it is that is right. We cannot win this election campaigning Republican light. We cannot win this election and beat back Donald Trump's policies by being Donald Trump light on immigration. And as my friend Michelle called me up here, we need to talk about immigration, because that is what the Republicans think their number one issue is going to be. To try to blame immigrants, poor people, desperate people for the nation's problems in order to distract from the fact that the Republican Party is basically built to enrich their corporate and billionaire buddies. That's it. That's what they're here for. The first bill that I came to vote on as a freshman member of Congress was Republicans wanting to get rid of IRS agents that go after big corporations and billionaires. That's their real agenda. But in order to hide that agenda, they want to blame immigrants. So we can either fall into that trap or we can push back. And we can say that immigration is good, that immigrants are good, that we can agree that that is the core founding, one of the four founding principles of this country. We can make a contrast and show that we're listening to the generation that is asking for change, the generations that have asked for change for so long before us have shaped the country as it is we have today. We can say immigration is good. We can create a pathway to legalization for 13 million people here. We can make sure that we integrate folks that are coming here desperate from other countries because that improves our economies and improves the quality of life for everyone. We can address the root causes of migration and stop starving people abroad and forcing them to leave. And that will inspire people to come out and vote. Because these anti-immigrant forces, if they're out there selling Donald Trump policies, we're not going to win by selling Trump-light policies. Folks will just go for the real thing. But instead, there are so many millions of people who will be inspired and will come out for change if they see that their representatives are serious about it. If when push comes to shove, they see us shoving back. So I just really want to thank each of the organizations here for your diligent and relentless advocacy, because when I visited those college campuses, it wasn't a lot of students who had given up or who had said it's not worth it participating. It was the exact opposite. It's young people demanding more from us on climate, more from us on addressing inequality, more from us on demanding immigrant justice, more from us on standing up to corporate lobbyists, and standing up instead for everyday people. So thank you guys for what you guys are doing here today.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye, summer. Say bye to summer. Thank you. It's my honor also to now introduce Representative Jamal Bowman.
Peace and love, y'all. How y'all doing? Good. You know, it's always tough to go after Greg Casar, not only because he's a brilliant activist, but because he has an amazing set of hair. And I am completely bald, and I cannot grow anything. So I'm very jealous of him with regard to that. What's up, brother? Always good to see you, man. Absolutely. Can I get some X's in the sign? Shout out to Gen X in the building. Gen X? Can you get some X's in the air? X for Gen X, X for the Bronx, X for Malcolm X. It's really an honor to be here. Thank you all for allowing me to say a few words. Shout out to Gen Z for Change. Shout out to the Sunrise Movement. Shout out to United We Dream. And shout out to March for Our Lives, y'all. Thank you so much for your relentless, urgent love and leadership for our country, for the planet, and for humanity. Thank you so much for continuing to do what you do. Thank you so much for continuing to organize. Thank you so much for your energy, your brilliance, your research, and your passion for what this country needs to do in this moment. To piggyback on Greg's point, it's always been young people that have led revolutions in our country, from abolition to suffrage to the civil rights movement to Black Lives Matter to the ceasefire movement to the climate movement. It has always been young people. So please keep doing what you all are doing, but let's expand your reach as well, because we need millions more, tens of millions of more young people to be a part of what's happening right here. We understand that there are many out there who feel disgusted by the system, jaded by the system. You don't trust the system, and we understand why, and we agree with you. And this is why we are doing everything we can to fight back with organizers and activists across the country to hold this place where I worked and this political system accountable for what it hasn't done over the years as it relates to immigrants, marginalized people, poor people, the black community, and so many others. You know, to piggyback on Bernie's point, special interests, billionaires, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, the 1%, They have the money, they have the so-called power, they have the resources, they have the infrastructure. We have the people. And there is nothing can defeat, or there's nothing that is more powerful than organized people. And I want to send a message directly to the AIPACs of the world and the special interests of the world. Your bullying is not working anymore. Your intimidation is not working anymore. Your fear-mongering is not working anymore. You can invest every dollar you have to run your propaganda and lies against us. But we are 1,000 times more powerful than you are, because our work is rooted in love for humanity first and foremost. Love for humanity, that is it. Right and wrong, that is it. U.S. dollars should not contribute to the bombing and starvation of babies. Period. U.S. dollars should not contribute to the mass incarceration of black and brown bodies. U.S. dollars should not contribute to what Trump wants to do, and hopefully Democrats will not be Trump-like, my brother. Mass deportation of immigrants. U.S. dollars should not be used for this. We have lost our moral ability to govern because our money is not going towards making sure everyone in our country has a home. Our money is not going towards making sure everyone has access to health care. Everyone has access to a job, paying a prevailing wage. We have a planet we need to save, and it seems like we are doing more to burn it to the ground than actually save it. Gun violence, Brother Rokana, is still the #1 issue in my district. People are still concerned about this issue, but we have not done anything radical, not even radical, common sense, as it relates to gun violence in our country. And so this is what finish the job is all about. And finishing the job is not just about our president. Yes, President Biden, let's finish the job. But also, we need our senators to finish the job, and we need other members of the House to finish the job, and we need states and counties and cities to finish the job. Because the job is to make sure we are supporting those in the most marginalized and dire circumstances, to help them tap into their own self-determination so that they can lift up our entire country and save us from ourselves. Because what we are doing is destroying ourselves, and as a result, we are destroying the planet and people all around the world. And that is not what a liberal democracy is supposed to be about. So, are y'all ready for a revolution, y'all? Yeah. Are we the revolution, y'all? Oh, yeah. The revolution is happening right now. Right in front of you. I don't want to hear nothing about, oh, I'm staying home, I'm sitting out, I'm not voting. If you've done that, if you've made that decision, you have given your power over to those who want to continue to oppress you. We need everybody involved. Young people, people of color, marginalized people, rural communities, urban, suburban. We need everyone involved to save our democracy and our planet and our humanity. No one can sit on the sideline at this moment. And I want you to think about one thing right now. Think about the day after. Think about the day after Jamal Bowman wins his election against AIPAC. Yeah. Think about that. Think about the day after we win climate justice and economic justice and racial justice and immigrant reform, comprehensive, real, true pathway to citizenship, immigrant reform. Think about when we win justice for women's rights. Think about the day after this and the kind of country we are going to be then. That is our vision. That is our calling. And that is our mission as a collective. And our movement will always, no matter what, be rooted in love and our humanity. Thank you all so much.
All right, Natalie, March for Our Lives time.
Yeah.
Hello, hello, I'm ready.
Hi, there you are.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Fall, and I'm the Executive Director of March for Our Lives. I'm here today to tell President Biden and any candidate who wants the youth vote in November to finish the job. We are facing not just a crisis of a generation, we are facing multiple, intersecting, and overlapping crises. However you square it, young people are carrying the weight of years of missed opportunities. Gun violence is ravaging our communities, and young people and people of color are bearing the brunt of it. How can we accept a world where young people cower in terror because of a soaring gun violence epidemic that our leaders turn away from? How can we accept a world where a black boy is 10 times more likely to be killed by a gun than their white peer? We cannot accept this world. Young people refuse to accept this world. It's why so many people walked out of their classrooms and marched in the streets in 2018 and again in 2022 to call for the end to gun violence, and it's why so many of us are still here today. Young people are inheriting a broken and imperfect world, but as Gen Z and millennials step into political power and become a larger share of the electorate and even step into office themselves, we are not accepting things as they are. We are saying no more. We deserve better and we demand better. We deserve a world that is safer, healthier, greener, more free, and more just, where it is easier to access health care and education than it is to buy a weapon of war. So we say to our leaders, and we're so grateful to have some of them here with us today who have stood beside us and championed us, we will show up again and vote for you, but only if you believe in the world that we're fighting for. Only if you won't accept things as they are. Only if you will fight for our right to live free of fear, free of inequity, free of violence. Only if you will champion this youth agenda. This agenda is our roadmap for a world we deserve, a world where everyone can thrive. It is a template to building that world and is a template to winning our votes too, and to winning elections. So we are calling on President Biden and any candidate who wants young people's vote in November to listen to us, heed our call, adopt the youth agenda, govern with our future in mind, and we will deliver you our votes in this year. In 2024, you cannot win the youth vote without embracing the youth agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. It is my honor to introduce Representative Ro Khanna to speak on the youth agenda.
Well, thank you. I am so inspired by young people around this country. I'm inspired by what Gen Z for Change, March for Our Lives, United We Dream, and Sunrise are doing today. This is not just a youth agenda. This is an aspirational and morally clear agenda for America. The young folks are speaking with conscience about what America should be, because they are seeing every day the killing of children and babies in Gaza. They are pleading, saying the suffering needs to end and we need a permanent ceasefire. Because they see the wildfires, the refugees, the flooding, the devastation. They're pleading and saying something that is such common sense. We need to declare a climate emergency. Because they know folks who can't pay rent and know that Wall Street continues to buy up single-family housing and rental units. They're saying we need to recognize that there is a housing affordability crisis in this country and invest in real public and social housing. These are ideas that so many Americans have. Young people just have the boldness to fight for it. And they understand on health care that you can't have a situation where you're going into a doctor's office, as one of my friends took her daughter for some emergency because she had fractured her wrist, and then have bills with the medicine and bills with the doctors, even being insured, that add up to $700 or $1,000 for one visit. And that's why we need Medicare for all. Here's what I believe. I believe not only that young folks are going to shape the direction of America, I believe the only way we win elections is when we have them out and inspired. And how do I know? And I'll end with this. I was looking at a picture from President Obama's 2012 campaign. Not the Hope and Change one. This was the tough re-election against Mitt Romney. And 2 days before the election, he was speaking in Wisconsin in 2012, almost 12 years ago. And out in Wisconsin was a sea of humanity. Many, many young folks, people of all backgrounds, all races, proud children of immigrants, thousands and thousands of folks. Let me tell you something. If we don't have a coalition that is multiracial, that has young folks, that has voters of color, that has progressives, then we will not win this election. The only way we're going to win this election is if we listen to what young people are telling us, not just with the uncommitted votes, but by their very presence. That we need an inspirational agenda, that we need to recognize the fundamental values of peace, of human rights, of America being an immigrant nation, that we need to stand for something hopeful and aspirational instead of simply tearing people down. That's how we are going to win this election, and I'm so grateful to these organizers who are here in the Capitol taking the time to remind us of our calling in this nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. I'd love to call the congressman and the speakers up just for a second. And just to say that this is what it looks like to finish the job, is to have multiracial, cross-generational organizing happening right now, fighting for a real agenda that invests in our generation, and standing here first and foremost calling for a ceasefire. And we thank you all for coming. The speakers will be here at the end to take questions from press, and Representative Kano, we can't thank you enough for being here as well. Thank you. Thanks. All right, thank everybody.